There's a moment that happens with almost every person at some point. They look at where they are. They think about where they used to be. And somewhere in between those two thoughts, they come to a conclusion. I've let it go too long. I'm not trying to be what I used to be. Or I just want to slow things down a little. And what they're really saying is, in some ways, I'm too far gone. But what if that's not reality? What if it's just a belief? One that's been reinforced over time. Repeated so often that they feel it's true. And what if that belief is the only thing standing between where you are now and where you could actually be today on the Personalized Fitness Podcast? Hello again, and everyone, and welcome to the Personalized Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Williamson, president of Personalized Fitness. As always, we're here to talk about health, fitness, longevity, and pushing back about what I call the lie of age, that ridiculous concept that time passing on a calendar actually causes deterioration. Pardon me. And today we're dealing with one of the most common and limiting beliefs. I'm too far gone. Now, if you have any questions, please reach out to us, area code 251-278-3343. You can contact us via our website, personalizedfitness.com. Reach out to me, Garrett, at personalizedfitness.com. All right. What this actually looks like. Now, here's the interesting part. People rarely say, I'm too far gone. They don't use those exact words. Instead, it shows up in a very specific way. I call it, what I've seen for years, I call it the throwing up of hands. They'll lean back a little, hands will come up, palms facing out, almost like they're stopping the conversation before it goes too far, and they'll say something like, now look, I'm not trying to be what I was when I was 20. I'm not trying to look like Mr. Muscle Man. I know I'm never going to get back where I was. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. It sounds realistic. But what they're really saying is, I know there are things I can't do anymore. I know I've passed that point. I know my best days are behind me. Folks, that belief is the real problem. Let me show you where that comes from. That belief didn't come from nowhere. It's reinforced constantly. It's reinforced from friends, from family, from commercials, from society itself. You can't go through a single day without hearing something about decline associated with time passing on a calendar. As you age, this happens. You're going to need this eventually. 50 is the new 30. That's another one that drives me nuts. Even things like that. And what it does is it creates this quiet assumption. Decline is inevitable. So people don't even question it. They just accept it. And I'll tell you, speaking from experience, if you try to question it yourself, they'll look at you funny. But let's step back for a second, because here's the question nobody asks. Where is the proof that time itself causes decline? Now, I know where you're going to go when I say that, but not a correlation, not an observation, but actual proof. Because what we do has overwhelming evidence for the four components of ability: fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. They're completely controllable at any age. So if one side is controllable and the other side, oh, by the way, controllable and proven, and the other side is just assumed, why don't we at least question the assumption? Now, again, if you're just joining us, this is a Personalized Fitness podcast. Today, we're talking about the lie of I'm too far gone. If you'd like to reach out, contact us at 251-278-3343, personalizedfitness.com. My email address, garrett@personalizedfitness.com. Love to hear from you. And as always, be on the lookout for my upcoming book, The Lie of Age. All right, getting back to this, let me give you a real example. I've got a client who started with me in 1997. If some of my clients are listening to this, you know who I'm talking about. He's still with us today. And for years, we had the same conversation. He would tell me all the time, Garrett, when you get older, these things just happen. Now, here's what's interesting. He was in phenomenal shape, but he still believed it. That belief was still there. Let me show you the moment where everything changed. One day we were training, and he did something he'd never done before in his life. He did a pull-up. Not one. He did 4 or 5. Okay, you may not think that's a big deal, but because of our inherent thought about time passing on a calendar, he did that at 81 years old. And after he got done, he looked at me and said, I have never done that before. Now think about that. Not when he was 20, not when he was 30, but at 81. The hardest body weight exercise to do. That means his best was not behind him. It was still in front of him. And that's what people don't realize. They're not comparing themselves to what's possible. They're comparing themselves to a memory, to an observation. Now, this is where it gets really important. Because when people come in, they think they have a goal. And don't get me wrong, we don't ignore them. We address them, absolutely. We shoot for them. Their goal may be losing weight or getting stronger or just feeling better. But I'll tell you what, that's not the real goal. The real goal is something we call your level of wellness. You hear me say that at the end of every single podcast. Well, here's what that means. At some point in a client's journey with us, they're going to have a moment. And it typically does not happen in our facility or in a workout. It won't be on a scale. It won't be lifting a certain weight. It will typically be something small, but something real. Let me show you what that moment looks like. It might be putting on a piece of clothing, catching a look at themselves in the mirror, picking up something without difficulty or pain, getting on the floor with their grandchild, walking without assistance, doing something they haven't done in years. And at that moment, they stop. And they think, I haven't felt this way in a long time. And then something even more important, even more powerful happens. They think, I like this. I like where I am. I don't need to go further. I just want to stay here. Let me show you why that matters. Because that moment never happens if you believe you're too far gone. You never even start. Here's the truth. You may not want to get back to where you were at 20. But that doesn't matter. Because you're not chasing who you were. You're building who you can become. And that person is almost always far better than what you think is possible right now. You're not too far gone. You've just been taught to believe that you are. And that belief is the only thing that needs to change first. Because once that belief changes, everything else becomes possible. and helping you discover what is still possible. Well, that's just one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time.